Hello and welcome to CSR Live. Today we have with us Ms. Shaina Ganapathy, the head of community outreach in Embassy. So first of all, welcome and thank you so much for being with us here today. For our
Thank you.
audience, can we just start with a little introduction about you and the company?
Sure. Embassy Group is a leading real estate developer, and we have been leading the space of commercial and luxury real estate for the last 2.5 decades, over 2.5 decades. And in the community outreach space, we began interventions much beyond, before the rules came into play, sometime in 2010. And we've primarily focused our outreach initiatives working closely with the education department and supporting and sort of encouraging, the infrastructure needs that the government schools across Karnataka and other parts of the country. And we've recently also, during the COVID pandemic, looked at how can we ensure the safety and well-being of the students that study in government schools, looking at basic requirements like food, ration, health kits, masks, sanitizers, etc. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail later. The other piece that we do in our community outreach is working closely with the communities where Embassy's projects are located. So we look at the geographies and the communities around where we are positioned, and we look at public spaces, upgradation, education, waste management, etc.
That sounds perfect. That's great. So before we start talking about Embassy, specifically, I just want to know for our audience and for our team, how important CSR exactly is for big corporates such as yourself. What's the main importance of CSR for you guys?
I think for us, there is a very strong belief right from the chairman down to my colleagues who drive our cars, that we believe that education, if it is an equitable offering and we can reach it to the poorest of societies, it is a huge contribution that a company like ours can make towards nation building. And we believe that education is a leveler in every way. And because we are a renowned real estate developer, we felt that providing infrastructure and solutions around infrastructure, resources, when I say resources, it could be even teachers, basic things that children lack today in government schools, like school bags, shoes, any education resources, technology, and books, writing books, and all of that is something that we truly believe will make a huge difference in the poorest of our society. And that's the belief, and I think everything else that we do stems from there.
Okay, so that's great. That's a great ideology. But what I want to know is that is CSR somehow beneficial for corporates as well? Is there some benefit out of CSR?
I think so. I think, see, while the government has laid out some clear guidelines on how we should take this forward, I'll give you the example of my company and some of our corporate partners. We involve our employees in all of what we do. And I think each employee comes back and tells us that they had the most, rewarding experience spending time with, and been given an opportunity to engage with, the community that really is actually right around them, but they never get an opportunity to, help. So on two fronts, whether it's employees within the organization giving back, and also companies like ours that partner with other corporate tenants in our tech parks and work together, including sometimes even our residential customers. I think there is a huge sense of, gratitude, a sense of, being able to make that change, a tangible change. And of course, when you look back at the organization, everything we do is not just about commercial, business. It's also about creating a tangible difference in our communities. So yeah, I think it's a win-win. Both employees, the management, and our customers. We all sometimes, through the years, several conversations about giving back together. And I think that's very meaningful.
I think that's absolutely correct. And I think in the latest trend, we can also see that the social image of a company is very, very important even in the market these days, because how much you give back to the society is, I think, how much you get back in. So that is absolutely correct. So let's talk about a few recent projects that embassy has like going on right now.
So to give you an idea, during COVID, while there was obviously restrictions of all kinds, our education infrastructure, the area that where we repair, renovate, or build government schools, did not stop. Fortunately, there was a disruption during the main lockdown around May. But otherwise, we continued to, we actually said this is a great opportunity to go into government schools and just make sure nothing is broken. So when the kids come back, we have functional, safe infra. We also experimented with the government, and we managed to pull together. I remember during the thick of the pandemic, we were in Zilla Parishad offices somewhere on the outskirts of Bangalore, figuring out how we can convince the local authorities to recognize the work that we've done in environment. So we have this project where we're working with the panchayat outside Bangalore, where we've, in the last 3 years, worked very closely with a NGO partner called the Anonymous Indian Trust, and managed to have segregated waste collection done successfully. Close to 90% and over households were segregating waste. And we also did a very interesting community project where all the women in the villages came together, etc. Right? So during the pandemic, again, waste had to be picked up. We couldn't stop what we were doing. And fortunately, the government spent, normally they take a lot of time, but they recognized our work, and they've actually set us off with a 2-acre land and said, can we set up a dry waste management center together and manage all the solid waste, not only of that one panchayat, but will you take over 2? So during the lockdown, that whole new project came into place. So we'll be looking at construction of a solid waste management center. So that's exciting. In terms of, I think the most important thing that we did during COVID was to reach out to the police personnel across India. We gave them access to our tech parks, and we said that 24/7 during the COVID time, police personnel will have access to, normally in a tech park, we have an information center right in front, right? So we gave them hot coffee, tea, water, masks, and access to toilets and rest, and sometimes meals during the food, the meal timings. And this we opened up across the country. And in every one of these cities where embassy is present today, Noida to Mumbai, Pune, Chennai, and Bangalore, we also made sure that every policeman, when they reported to work in the morning, got a sanitizer that he could slip into his pocket, an energy bar, and a fresh mask. So in Mumbai, we did a lot more. We did PPEs, we did fumigation machines, etc. But this ran through the pandemic. And seeing our work, some of our tech park occupiers joined the bandwagon and also pitched in and sort of helped us to extend it for a longer term. So that was something very meaningful. Over 5.5 lakh meals were also donated, not just to migrant workers. You've seen that, crazy rush for food during the lockdown, but we did a very focused effort. We said, wherever we have adopted government schools, we will call the children and we will ensure that the parents come and pick up 15 kilos of ration. And we did this 3 times over and made sure that the children had ration. And preventive health kits, which had masks and oral hygiene kits, awareness posters, the works. So over the lockdown, I remember we had already, by about September, we had clocked about 80 interactions where we had gone out into the public and worked alongside whether the police or the government school families, or in general, a lot of migrant folks around. We have a hospitality division at embassy which started churning out cooked food. So that was reaching hospitals and hospital staff. So I think the COVID relief took a lot of precedence this year. Other than that, in the background, we continued our work, even though we couldn't get into classrooms as such because schools were closed. We did something very nice, Varun. We actually did not pull out the funding of our NGO partners. These are long-term partners. We've had them for at least 4 years. And we believe that sustaining their existence was critical because we had reached a momentum with each one of them in terms of delivery, and we didn't want that to crash. So we also allocated funding to just sustain some of these NGO partners. And I think that was a good move, because now when schools are opening in Karnataka, they're all actually, aligned. Everybody's been training, everybody's still safe and slowly trying to get out into the field. So
That's great. And I'm very intrigued because you used the word we experimented with the government, and we'll get into that like 2 minutes later. Before that, I want to ask, how exactly does the working of CSR works in embassy? Like, do you guys have NGO partners you just mentioned? Do you guys are also directly involved in the activities, or you guys just go through the NGOs or some other organizations?
So it's been a pretty interesting journey. We don't shop for NGOs every year. We don't have an empaneling season like most of my corporate friends have. We've been fortunate enough to work with 3 or 4 solid NGO partners who've been with us for over 4 years now. What was interesting is, initially we thought when you said an NGO is there as a partner, they'll take away a chunk of your money and call it admin expenses, and your money will really, not reach the beneficiary. I think because we don't work at such a huge, national, scale, we were able to curate a relationship and a project with each NGO. So let me give you one example. We have an NGO called Colors of Life. We impact 3,500 students in Bangalore, and there are 14 schools. So the program is really in depth. It's not a one-time donation, etc. From the month of June, when schools typically open, all the way to summer school, after the month after April exams, we have daily interventions. We get 8 hours of contact time with students, for which you need an entire machinery, a program, resources, and people to deliver. So my NGO partners actually are now, I think over the last 2-3 years, we built their capacity to manage delivery partners. And what's interesting is that we don't really depend on each NGO, each person inside the NGO to go and do a project for you. So we've created a sort of a joint mandate. We've got the whole framework of how we want to work aligned in such a way that if it is a partner delivering math in government schools, let's say, we're not depending on this little NGO to deliver math. So we've actually tied up with a pan-India provider. So the scaling takes place at that level. So the function of our NGO partner is really to monitor and deliver a project. So this is very interesting. We call it outsourcing in the real estate business, and we do it really well. One of our strengths as embassy has always been to outsource project management, outsource design development, and it's just the sales and marketing and the finances that we keep within our control. So this has allowed us to scale as a business in embassy as a real estate developer, and we applied that to an NGO relationship, and it works because we are not really dependent on the limited skills of a team, but we then have access to a much larger spectrum of vendors, so to speak, who deliver our programs.
So basically, the NGOs are there to monitor the whole project that is going on, but you're not dependent on them to carry out the project. So basically, you guys have your own team for that, but you need the NGOs to use their resources to reach out to, the...
We allow the NGOs to appoint the vendors to deliver.
Exactly. Okay.
But we're not dependent on just the NGO to deliver everything.
Yeah, right.
To deliver. For example, the sports programs in government schools, we work with a pan-India present NGO called EduSports. Now, EduSports understands, and they have an entire setup to deliver sports in government schools. So the NGO is not wasting its resources or time. So our efficiency is so much more because all our time is spent in monitoring and improving and recording the impact of what's going on.
So, just let me ask this a very straight question to you. How exactly was it collaborating with the government, for like any government? I'm not talking about any specific today's government, or like in general, how's the experience of collaborating with governments to perform a social activity or CSR, and how exactly does the system work? Because a lot of times we all know that things don't go as we plan, or things go haywire some way or the other. They might have other vision or some other plans. The corporate might have some other plans. So how do you guys like work together, and how is the experience?
I can give you three very, very good examples.
Sure.
One for sure is, as a builder, we wanted to create awareness amongst our tech park occupiers that we could do stuff collectively, because the problems are all the same and we all seem to be working in silos and trying to fix a problem, right? So let me take an example of a government school in the vicinity of a huge tech park like Manyata, right? So ANZ Bank would go and build two toilets and come away. Another company will go and fix the computer lab and come away. Embassy will go and try and build a classroom and come. So none of us are talking to each other, but we're actually figuring out and providing solutions to a government institution. And there is absolutely no connect to the government either. We work through NGO partners. That's how it was in the beginning. So we recognized this problem, spoke to our corporate occupiers through several interactions, and we said, guys, all of us have CSR mandates. None of us are NGOs, right? If we collectively find one NGO to work with, can we sort of focus on, let's say, one school, pull out what exactly we think the school needs, talk to the government institution that actually runs the school, have alignment, and then allow embassy to execute it if it is infrastructure. And then came the question, who's going to talk to the government? Because all of them, the experience was, it's very gray. We don't want to deal with them. We'd rather work through NGOs, right? So fortunately, embassy had a great rapport with the government on the real estate day-to-day functioning aspects, aligning teams, new people there, right? So to put it very simply, the education department has been a pleasure to work with in Karnataka. The police departments across India have been nothing but supportive. They're all on WhatsApp. The senior most fellows respond to WhatsApp every single day. If it's not instantly, they will do it by the end of the day. So our experience was, and our role, the role evolved because this need came, is that we went to the government and said, we have 190 odd tenants today. Okay, 30 or 40% of them are interested to help you because they want education to be part of their CSR mandate. If you can scope and define what you want, we have the ability to take it back to them through our connections we have. We have the forum to bring it out. That led to a series of 8 events we've conducted so far called the Embassy Engage series. It's on various aspects. It's just not on education. It's on child safety, on disability, on collaboration, for example. Employee volunteering is another topic where when it came to education, we brought the principal secretary of education into the room. We had about 25 or 30 corporates sitting there, and we heard him out. When it was the police story, we got a senior director general of police come into the room and talk to the corporates. What embassy started then doing was facilitating conversations between the two parties, which fortunately has now led to a website that the government is going to announce very shortly called Namma Shale, Namma Koduge, whereby they've taken tons of input from embassy on how will a corporate have ease of business to support a government school. Instead of doing it in silos, can they directly look at a website, pick a school in the vicinity, a drop-down screen will tell you what the needs are. You go deeper, you see photographs, you actually see what the problem is. And then you can send money in, get your ATG, etc. So this, I think, is a huge conversation that we have led from the start. And corporates are grateful, because let's take an example of one of our recent partners where we are building a school. They were trying very hard to get a permission from a block education officer to start some work in a government school in Coxtown. It took them 2 hours to reach the BEO's office, and it took them another 2 hours to even see the gentleman. Finally, the chap didn't see him. Some junior person saw them, and they were utterly frustrated. They said, Shaina, this experience has taught us not to do anything directly. And they were grateful for any licensing support that we could offer them. And finally, my CSR team turned out to be a project management team for them. I had 2 engineers we had to hire. and we would scope out an infra project and get permissions with the government. And fortunately, the relationship has been great. So yeah,
This is
private officers
something
are fantastic, actually.
this is something very new, because like I've been in this field since a pretty long time now, and we have spoken to a lot of corporates regarding CSR and what they do. But this is something really new, because the website you spoke about, just like right now, is gonna make life easier for a lot of corporates to, and if they want to perform a CSR activity, if they actually want to make a difference, it'll be very easy for them to actually know which sector and where the need is actually. Because half the thing goes haywire in finding where to put in the good CSR funds, and then expecting the results to be somewhat, like, I don't know, greater than they even think of before starting the project, and that just goes wrong. Anyway, so what interests me a lot right now is that, so embassy doesn't only perform CSR, but they are also trying to make a, in a very simple language, a gateway for the other corporates with the government, where they can even collaborate together. So you guys are even
Yeah.
working as a bridge, if I may. So that sounds
Uh,
perfect.
I
So
spend I
yeah.
spend half my time advocating for a collaborative approach. So any chance we get, we are actually the dialogues are always about not asking for money or any of that, because we can't accept any money, right? All we're trying to do is saying, here is the right platform, here is a problem, can we sort it out, and can we do this in a sustainable approach? So the other option is to do it on your own, go and fix something through an NGO and come out, or you become a partner with the government. I mean, look at COVID. COVID has taught us that the government machinery works. All the distribution of ration, especially in the experience we had, it was done seamlessly, because they knew exactly where the below income group people lived. Each corporator had his own domain, and all of them worked so hard. So I think this gray area, or as you said, I mean, when you put the question to me, there is a lot of fear, and corporates don't want to deal with something that's not very transparent.
No, but this makes me, and I think our whole audience, very optimistic, because this shows that embassy really wants to make a difference. Because we all know there are a lot of corporate that just do CSR because of the mandate, and they have to show results on the paper, and it is compulsory for them to put 2% of their annual profits. So, but this makes us see that there are corporates who actually want to make a difference, and want to make the our country or world a better place, and that is really good. So what exactly is the future plan, or like a longer term plan, or the bigger picture for embassy right now in terms of CSR or sustainability, or the projects?
I think environment is a huge concern for us. There are two aspects of it. What is the problem that is already existing, like waste management or the lack of water, etc. And also, when each time we as a builder, we develop large IT parks, right? And so we also sometimes add to the problem of traffic, etc. So I think a long-term plan is always to build, and when we build, to build it in a very sustainable manner, to know what impact we'll have on the society, and try and sort of impact the entire geography where we are going to be present. So you'll find already metro stations, elevated roads, clean drains and roads for pedestrians to walk are already a part of what we do. And I don't and the management's very clear, we don't want to call it CSR. It is our duty to give back. If we are able to fix an infrastructure problem, it's something that we as a builder would like to give back to the city. And our chairman, Mr. Virbani, has also been very successful in advocating amongst his developer fraternity to give back to the city as well. So metro station is a good example. You'll find that a lot of builders are coming forward and donating metro stations to the government. Public infrastructure is a large piece for us in the future. Education, I can tell you, the government school system, while the framework is there, which means safe buildings are there, teachers are there, students are finally coming back to government schools today. The quality of education, the improving the quality and uplifting children and making sure they actually don't drop out. They go into colleges, they come back and find us and make sure that we give them jobs. That whole cycle of life, the skill development piece. I mean, I think that's a big one for us. We don't believe that we're going to call this a 3-year CSR project and say, okay, now you guys figure it out. We're done with what we're doing. It's not something that I see happening. We've currently introduced skill development and back to work at embassy for children in Bangalore. And I see that becoming a large part of what we do. So making that whole life cycle of that child, sustainable and hopefully elevating the life of that child would be a long-term goal.
So what I get from this is that you guys are not only focusing in one specific sector or two specific sectors. You guys are making sure to see it to the end. Basically, like how you said that we are going to focus on the education as well as providing jobs to the people who are in future going to graduate, or so overall you guys are seeing it from the start till the end. So that sounds perfect,
Yeah.
and that is
Today,
absolutely great.
today, Varun, scholarships is a big piece of what we do. Okay, but the challenge is to get children to come and ask for scholarship. I mean, you'll be amazed. Well, there is, let's say, 30 lakhs set aside for scholarships. Not even 1/5 of it actually is because the children come and ask. We have to really push them to study. We have to get them off the streets by going to that evening. They earn 4 or 5 thousand rupees after school in a small kirana shop and take that money home necessarily. So, to changing that whole mindset and getting them off the streets is going to take time.
Yeah, and doing that will require improving the basics, as you said, because like if the basics in the school are
Yeah.
better, they will have the mindset to actually reach out for bigger things and plan to go to colleges or do higher studies. Because the basic of our education system right now, or our government schools in the rural area especially, is that you just need a degree. You are just a 10th pass person, so you can go and start working in a shop or like anywhere. You can just go and tell people, yeah, I've passed my 12th standard. That's it. That's all they do. They do not prepare them to do bigger things. And that's really great that embassy is focusing it on like very whole aspect. So before ending this interaction, I just wanted to know, you guys have been working before 2014, before there was a mandate for CSR, and now you guys are still working in the domain, and that too actively. So what differences, or what major differences do you find before operating before the mandate and after the mandate?
I think before the mandate, we were pretty much on our own. After the mandate, I find that a lot of conversations are taking place about wanting to align our visions, doing collective work, collaborating with the government. So these are very key words to ensuring that anything we do is sustainable, right? So I think the government CSR framework has allowed us to respond to COVID. You've seen that. They've allowed us to directly contribute. I think that was the easiest and the most meaningful thing that the government did for us. We were able to reach in time directly to the beneficiary, especially hospitals and doctors and police personnel, for example. So that's a huge change. And for us as embassy, I think we are seeing this as a huge opportunity where corporates, working in similar fields are actually now closely talking to each other, and we're networked so well because of our Embassy Engage series. They sort of see us as a friend, as a guide, and we constantly keep in touch with them, give them updates on what's new in the market, what's new in the CSR law. If there is a new project that somebody is talking about, we sort of help them scope it out, and we say, can we do this? 2 or 3 of us. I just want to give you one example of this, and this happened during COVID, where the SSLC exams in Karnataka was just, the most ambitious plan. Nobody wanted it to happen. All other curriculums had cancelled exams, and Karnataka government was saying SSLC exams must happen. So we reached out to the government, quickly asked them, guys, what do you need? I mean, this seems like a mammoth task. So the Commissioner of Public Instruction, very dynamic, he said, Shaina, get me sanitizers into every school. Can you do that for me? Can you get me masks into every school? We have X number of centers, 9 lakh odd children every day for 6 days. we took this out, and just within I think 2 days we managed to communicate it to our entire spectrum of our the corporate occupiers and friends we had, and we collected close to 1 crore of rupees, and embassy sort of managed the project. It just shows that it was so structured. We knew what to do. Earlier on, I'm sure I would, as an individual company, we would never have been able to reach out and have the impact that we did finally. I think we managed to cover Pan Karnataka with a lot of effort from a large team on my end, which pitched in. But yeah, I think people are thinking about managing larger issues for longer periods of time in a more sustainable way. I think this is
I think I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but in layman terms, if for our audience, if I want to sum up the whole situation, I would say that embassy has figured out the importance of teamwork and unity in the state, because you guys have connected your network of corporates and with the government. So you guys have it very sorted, if I may,
yes.
because like you guys have the connections to perform the task. You guys know what task to perform. You know exactly where the need is. So that sounds perfect, and I think corporate should take notes from this in every part of the country, because if everyone starts working like this, the money would go in the right places. There would be results that actually would make a difference, and things
Be
might,
surprised,
yeah.
you'd be surprised that employees within our company who hadn't stepped out of their comfort zone during COVID collected 70 lakhs across just our employee base. And over 85 of them, even my drivers, stood and worked all day. So the power of giving can actually come from within the company. It need
Then
not
I
be.
must say you have a great team of employees
Yeah.
with you, if they're working so hard, and I'm very very I don't know if happy would be the right word, but it's great to hear all these stories about people being so involved in social activities such as this. So before ending this interaction, there's always this one question that I ask people like you who have been in this domain for so long. What do you feel is the situation of CSR landscape in our country right now, and do you think it can be made better somehow, and how do you think government should work towards it, like in the current scenario? Because I know I keep circling back to the government, but it is actually a very important question that we need to answer, is that how government should involve themselves into the CSR aspect in
I
our
truly
countries.
believe, and you can quote me, I believe that the way a corporate functions, right, the frameworks, the SOPs, and the amount of time we invest in making sure those SOPs are efficient, getting in a Price Waterhouse or a large one of the big fours to think through how everything should flow within an organization so that the leadership can have time to think. That is not really, I would say, uniform in every state. So I speak for the Department of Education, right? The senior most and most brilliant guys spend all their time on stuff they shouldn't be really focusing on. So I think the largest hurdle today, I feel, when corporates are there, you have the money and the funding and the alignment, all that is easy to do. The government has to just give a directive, and I'm sure we'll know where to put our money, right? Within the government organization, if there is some breather for the senior most guys to think about what next, I think a transformation, an organizational transformation, it's easy for you and me to know what that is, right? But it's so many layers, it's just like the senior most director of education spends 40% of his time on legal cases. I mean, they could have a legal cell managing that. And this guy could be, he's brilliant, he's an IAS officer, right? So you see that and you're like, you really wonder, how much change will really happen.
Yeah, that problem exists in every department in our country. That is not like that is just everywhere. If you see any case for that, for example, firstly there is no proper division of work. If you see, like as you correctly said, there can be a whole team who can focus on activities the main person or the higher people are focusing on, and it can be dealt with so easily. But there is no division of labor. People tend to uh, you know take a lot of responsibilities that they can actually allocate and make it work better. But I understand what you're trying to say, so that is
Few
true.
governments are going that route. They are improving. I have to say, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Uttarakhand. I see a lot of examples, Punjab, where they've taken into account that restructuring is required. People skill development is required. Investing in people is the need of the hour. But if it's something that as a country, it can start, permeating right down to Kerala, I think we have hope because the corporate, I mean, you hear me speak, and I speak for all our corporate occupiers. They're very serious about giving back. Everybody wants to see only impact at the end of the day, right? So when you have this whole sector ready to give, and then there is this other side of the actual, the problem. It doesn't go away so easily. It is frustrating.
Well,
Yeah.
that sounds great that we have people like you, and people like you in other corporates as well, who are so eager and so to give back to the society and actually want to make a difference. And that makes me and the whole team of CSR Live very optimistic about the future of CSR in our country for sure. So thank you so much, Shaina, for joining us here, and I hope we can reach out to as many people and we can get this message to all our audiences that how important it is to actually give back to the society in any way it is possible, because as you said, all your colleagues, even the people who are driving your cars, are so enthusiastic and so much involved into the process, and I think everybody can do it, so we can all learn from that. And is there anything you want to say for the ending note?
Want to thank you for listening to us, and hopefully, the I was telling Hisham and Soumya that what would be really nice to for publication like yours is to encourage conversations about collaboration and working with the government, not working without. I
Absolutely. I think that's what we have learned today, that teamwork is the answer to everything if we actually work with the government.
46 projects with our corporate occupiers to support the government. So there is proof that it works. You don't need to be an NGO to make it work. You need an NGO in the process of doing it. But
Basically, we need all the organizations working together. We need the government, we need the corporates, we need the NGO to work together to make a real difference. And it'll be easier for everyone if this happens. It'll be easier for the government, it'll be easier for the corporates, and I think NGOs are doing what they do. They do it the best. So that's great. That's great. Again, thank you so much for joining us here today, and we hope to see you soon again.
yeah, thank you so much. Bye.